Welcome to the Three Down Nation CFL picks for week 3 in the Canadian Football League. I'm John Hodge, joined as always by JC the Cheese Abbott. JC, how you feeling today?
Feeling good. I'm at the top of our straight up picks. Don't remind me about against the spread. I want to hear it. I'm not at the top there. But right now I'm 4-2 on the season. I'm feeling pretty good. I think I got it dialed in.
We are both 3-3 against the spread, which is not bad, but it's also not good. It's just mediocre. So we're both looking to improve on that this week. We were both 1-2 against the spread last week. The Alouettes got with the block punt a bit of a backdoor cover, which benefited me. But of course, I picked the Lions to win and cover in Regina, which did not happen. You correctly predicted that game, so good for you picking the Riders to win and cover at home. I'm going to be leaning towards the Riders this week. But before we get into that, because that's the last game, let's get into the first one. And I just got to say, on a scheduling note, what the heck is going on? No Thursday night football this week. I'm hungry for some football. I'm going to be watching the soccer when it's on, when Canada's playing. I would have loved to have a CFL game after that. It's not happening. And then we have 3 on Saturday. I don't want to watch 3 football games in a row, back to back to back. I want to enjoy them all one at a time and really get to appreciate them. So let us know in the comments of the pod, of YouTube, wherever it is you're watching, listening, enjoying our podcast. Let us know how you feel about the triple headers. I personally don't like them. How about you, JC?
Not a big fan of the triple headers just because I think everything gets mushed together and it becomes almost restrictive to be able to view all the games. But at the same time, people have complained over the first 2 weeks that we've only got these drips and drabs with 3 games, right? We haven't had that full schedule. Now they're jamming it right down your throat with a triple header on Saturday. So hopefully that makes up for it.
Though ironically, in week 1 and week 2, we had 3 days of football. Now we have more games than ever, and there's 2 days of football. To me, that's not progress. I'm looking forward to when we go back to the proper Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday schedule. I'm not a fan of this, but I digress. Let's get into the games, JC.
The BC Lions are 1.5 point road favorites on Friday night against the Hamilton Tiger Cats. BC is coming off a tough loss in Saskatchewan, which resulted in receivers Stanley Berryhill III, Javon Catoy, and Seven McGee being placed on the 6-game injured list. Keon Hatcher is also a game time decision, which could leave the Lions without 4 starting pass catchers. The Ticats, meanwhile, recorded an impressive win over the Blue Bombers last week, though they'll be without starting cornerback Jamal Peters. Can the Tabbies pull an upset in this cat fight?
I'm happy to take the Tiger Cats here, and I'm actually surprised the Tiger Cats are getting a little bit of love on the spread. Like, I would have thought they were the favorites for this one because let's be frank, if the Lions receiving core was a horse right now, the farmer would shoot it. I've never seen 3 receivers go down in the first game of the year. And then on top of it, you've got Keon Hatcher, game time decision. Keon Hatcher's a great player, but game time decision means that even if you play, you're not 100%. And late in the year, it's very normal for guys to play when they're not 100%. This is game 2. So, yes, the Tiger Cats gave up a ton of passing yardage against the Blue Bombers in week 2, but they have made some changes to that secondary. Zamari Walton is in at boundary corner for Peters. They've also added Devodrick Bynum, the veteran formerly of the Edmonton Elks, at field side corner, promoting him from the practice roster. They've demoted Greg Jr., who struggled there a little bit last week. So I like these defensive shakeups for the Hamilton Tiger Cats. And I will say, I watched the game film from that week 2 Bombers Ticats game, and the folks they have in that lineup right now who are not typically full-time starters or weren't necessarily supposed to be day 1 starters, I think Ryan Baker's been very good for them at middle linebacker in place of Wendell McManus. I thought Nathaniel Desmoulins-Duguay was great for them at right guard. So the depth of the Tabbies, I think, is shining early on. And obviously, Bo Levi Mitchell has just been absolutely outstanding, shredding opposing defenses in the intermediate game and the short range game. If they ever get the deep ball going, they got it going a little bit with Carrick Wheatfall last week. I think they can do some great things. And then on the flip side, like the Lions have less rest. They're flying all the way across the country. They're doing it down three, if not four starting receivers. And I'm sorry, that pass rush, I think it's going to be good still. I love Levi Bell, Matthew Betts, Sione Tehema, Jonah Tavai. I mean, it's a stacked group. Casey Sales, but they got absolutely no pressure on Trevor Harris this past week. And if you're Bo Levi Mitchell and you're getting rid of the ball super quickly, I think that can take away what is that strength of that BC Lions defense. So I am a big fan of this Ticats pick. I'm rolling with them. Frankly, I'd be happy to roll with them up to -3. So getting a 1.5, I feel like I'm laughing.
We're entirely in alignment on this pick, Hodge, and I think you highlighted the problems for the BC offense super well. Like Nathan Rourke solves a lot of problems. You could stick whoever you want out there, he probably produce, but there's not going to be a lot of experience in this receiving core. Even if Hatcher is able to go and you've got him and McKinnis as your top two options, you're talking about Kieran Poisson, Jermaine Jackson, and rookie Nick Senecal out there. That's not a particularly compelling receiving group, especially at this stage of the season. I don't trust their offense right now because of those injuries. And defensively, how could you trust them? I do believe that the Lions will get better, that their pass rush will improve. But when you've got young corners in CJ Colton, who's played for a couple of seasons, and Tyson Russell, who's a raw rookie, and then you send Kenny Lawler, who has not yet had that breakout game out there on the field against them, I think you got to be pretty scared if you're the BC Lions, because Bo Levi Mitchell is going to be chucking it up to him all game long, and Kenny Lawler likes those matchups a lot. I can guarantee it. So I think the Ticats are going to win this one decisively. I would pick them to win and cover if they were the favorites. The fact that they're slight underdogs right now is just gravy. Hammer the Tabbies in this game.
The Ottawa Redblacks are 1.5-point home underdogs to the Toronto Argonauts on Friday afternoon, Saturday afternoon, where both teams will look to secure their first wins of the season. This will, of course, mark the first time Ryan Dinwiddie faces his former club, though he downplayed the revenge angle when speaking to the media earlier this week, suggesting every game is important to win, as Ottawa does not want to dig itself into a hole in the East Division standings. The Redblacks should have Greg Bell in the lineup at running back after he missed week 1 with a neck injury, while Jake Herslow has been a full participant in practice after missing week 2 with Toronto. JC, will the Argonauts best their former coach, or will Dinwiddie get the W?
It's going to be a sour reunion for Ryan Dinwiddie. I believe in him as a head coach. I think eventually he will turn this Ottawa Redblacks team around. But right now, I'm just not seeing it. And I think when it comes down to it, most CFL games are determined by the quarterbacks. And right now, the Toronto Argonauts have a much better quarterback in Chad Kelly than the Ottawa Redblacks do in Jake Maier. Jake Maier has to show us what he flashed in the preseason that made Ryan Dinwiddie pick him as the starter over Drew Brown. Right now, I am skeptical. I think there's some other flaws on that roster, and the Toronto Argonauts showed in their first game that while they're an imperfect team skill, they are much improved when Kelly's under center, and they can be explosive on offense. I imagine that they are going to show that again against their former coach here and get a little bit of comeuppance for his departure this offseason.
I'm with you, JC, and I'm surprised that the Redblacks are only getting 1.5 points. I frankly would have made them longer underdogs. Like, look, they tackled terribly in that week 1 loss to the Edmonton Elks. I do think they'll get that fixed, but that defense, if they're going to slow down the Argonauts, like that defense has to be absolutely brilliant. I thought offensively, Ottawa offered very little in game 1. And yeah, the Argonauts struggled defensively quite badly, to be frank. In week 2, they got really carved up. But Davis Alexander, aside from maybe Nathan Rourke, is the best player, I think, in the CFL right now. His ability to hurt you with his legs, to make every throw, to buy time, just has him on a different level. And if there's a quarterback who is the antithesis of that, I'm sorry to say, right now in the CFL, it's Jake Maier. He offers you nothing really in terms of mobility with his legs. And in game one against Edmonton, he was the king of the check down. And look, that game was played in a absolute downpour. I hope for Ottawa's sake, Jake can start pushing that ball down the field. He's got great weapons to do it. And we've seen him do it with success in the past, but we didn't see it last year when he was the backup in Saskatchewan. We didn't see it game one. To me, this is going to be a track meet if you're the Toronto Argonauts. And I think they are capable of putting up 28, 30, 32 points against this Redblacks team. And I just don't see right now how the Redblacks get there. Greg Bell, I think, should make a difference. I think he's outstanding, and I think he's the perfect player to do a lot of those checkdowns with. He's almost a bit Justin Rankin-like in his ability to make people miss after the catch and make something out of nothing. But I just think the Argonauts are a lot further ahead at this point. It's a small sample size, only one game for both teams, but Chad Kelly basically looked like his old MOP self, and he did it without having any chemistry whatsoever with DeMonte Coxey and Mackay Polk, their two top receivers in Toronto. He was throwing to Kevin Mittal and Tyler Common and Dave Ungerer III, and they were still absolutely shredding Montreal's defense. So Chad Kelly, I think, is only going to be more productive if and when he gets it together with those top receivers, and I'm really curious to see if he does it at TD Place Stadium, where hopefully the weather is a lot better in week 3 than it was in week 1. Give me the Argonauts. This is a pick I feel particularly confident about.
The Montreal Alouettes are 3.5-point road favorites as they put their undefeated record to the test against the Edmonton Elks on Saturday. Running back Stevie Scott III appears to be ready to return for the Owls after missing their first 2 victories, though there are concerns regarding the health of linebacker Tyrese Beverette and kicker Jose Maltos Diaz. The Elks are expected to be without receiver Joe Robustelli yet again and offensive lineman Coulter Woodmansey for their home opener. After beginning the season with a win for the first time since 2019, can Edmonton keep the momentum going off the bye?
Look, I really liked what the Elks showed in game 1. I think defensively, they've hit the ground running. They improved dramatically on that side of the ball over the course of the 2025 season. They've got a lot of that personnel back and improved some parts of that personnel, namely Noah Curtis coming back from injury along the interior and Malik Carney, arguably the best edge rusher in the CFL, supercharging that pass rush off the edge. That being said, I just think the Montreal Alouettes are on a different level right now. Offensively, they have been sensational. They've had more big plays than anybody else in the league. Tyson Philpott is the top receiver in this league right now. And if you add Stevie Scott in there to help provide some more balance on offense, which has been missing at least a little bit, I think that the Alouettes offense can just get even better, to be perfectly honest. I think that they're going to provide some real opportunities to put up points. And I think the Elks are a much improved team. I think they're going to have a better record this year. I think they're going to win a lot of games at home in 2026. I just think if you're Edmonton and you're looking to build that consistency and build that momentum, this is the type of matchup you'd really want as like a measuring stick game in week 18 or 19 going into the playoffs, rather than your home opener, a place where you've traditionally been awful over the last 5 seasons. So the turf at Commonwealth Stadium, the brand new turf, I've seen photos. It looks great. For Edmonton fans, I desperately want them to get this win. I know we're not supposed to say that, but this team is finally 1-0. They're over 500 for the first time since 2019. Yes, that's true. The Elks were not over 500 at any point of the Biden administration, which is sad to say out loud. It would be amazing to get fans back into that building for them to win this game, knock off the reigning East Division champions in dramatic fashion. I just don't think it's going to happen. 3.5 points is a little more than I'd like. I wish I got this line at a field goal or just under, but I will be rolling with the favorites here. And in fact, I'm not sure I'm going to pick against the Alouettes until they give me a reason not to trust them. I'm rolling with Davis Alexander, his perfect 13-0 regular season record, and the Owls to get the win in Edmonton.
This is the first time you and I are going to disagree this week because I actually have a feeling in my gut that the Edmonton Elks can pull off the upset here. And that's Nothing against the Montreal Alouettes. I think they've been fantastic to start the season. I think they've shown explosiveness on offense like few others. But if you look at each of those two wins, there have been warts and flaws in those games, things that they've had to overcome, usually with a big timely play, whether that was Robert Kennedy's interception for a touchdown in week one, whether that was Micah Alway's punt block in week two. Now, that's the sign of a good team, but I don't think you want to be in a position where you're relying on that every single week. And I liked what I saw from the Edmonton Elks in their opening win. I think Justin Rankin makes them explosive on offense. I think their defense is much improved from the start of last year. I think it could be one of the best units in the league this season based on the talent that they have. And most importantly, they're going to be motivated because it's now or never for this team. There's pressure on Mark Killam as the head coach with Rick Campbell there in the building. And I think there's pressure on them to actually get butts in the seats in Commonwealth. And we'll see how many people show up to this game. But we know for certain the result of this game will determine how many butts are in those seats for the next one. I think the Elks understand that. I think they're a good football team. And I think they're going to do just enough to exploit one of Montreal's weaknesses or mistakes and hand them their first loss and advance to 2-0 for the season.
Ballsy pick, JC. Credit to you. And I do love the point that you make about the big plays. Montreal is +4 in the turnover ratio through 2 games. They won it by 2 in their first game and second game. If you're the Elks, that is a massive, massive importance for you this game. Do not turn the ball over. If you don't turn the ball over and get one back the other way, I do really like their chances of getting this upset. If they turn the ball over multiple times, I would just about say it's a 99% chance that the Alouettes win this one. So if you can control the football, you always got a chance. The Calgary Stampeders are 1.5-point home underdogs to the Saskatchewan Roughriders on Saturday night, where they'll look to stay undefeated against the Green and White after sweeping last year's head-to-head meetings. The Riders will be without standout defensive halfback Roland Milligan Jr., while the Stampeders may get one or both of Jalen Hutchings and Falarin Rimolade back, as they've both been full participants in practice this week. Will Saskatchewan improve to 2-0, or can Cowtown even its record at 1-1?
The return of those two defensive linemen, whether or not it happens, is a critical piece for me because I think they will fundamentally change that Stampeders defense if they are fully healthy and firing on all cylinders. But even if they were guaranteed to play in this game, I would still pick the Saskatchewan Roughriders because I watched them play against the BC Lions last week, and frankly, that was one of the best offensive performances that I've ever witnessed from a team and specifically from a quarterback in Trevor Harris. I think he is feeling himself right now. I think he is absolutely locked in, and he's got a full complement of weapons around him that he has built chemistry with, and he knows how to exploit defenses with. That's a tough situation for the Calgary Stampeders to be placed in. I think there are some opportunities to exploit some flaws in this Riders defense as they're missing Roland Milligan Jr. and they look to integrate some younger new faces in as well. But as long as the Roughriders offense continues to look like they did last week, there is no hope for any team in the league. That was marvelous efficiency from Trevor Harris. I believe it continues, and they get this victory.
I'm rolling with the Saskatchewan Roughriders, and for largely the same reasons, JC. Offensively, we didn't really see in 2025 the full complement of receivers all rolling together. Keyshawn Johnson, Kean Schaefer-Baker, Samuel Emelis, and those three, and that's no slight to the others. They've got some really talented receivers other than them, but those big three are so dominant. And the run game, I thought, was maybe a little bit underwhelming. Like, this was a team that ran the ball at will in the Grey Cup at times. 77 rushing yards in game one for Saskatchewan. I think they can do better than that. Yes, they've got some injuries. Jamarcus Hardrick is a little bit banged up, but I just think they are so good at getting that football out quickly. That is the number one thing that you need to do to be able to beat the pass rush. And they're better at it right now than anybody else, is making those pre-snap reads. Trevor Harris has talked about it. He's 40 years old, and he feels like he finally has all the cheat codes of knowing exactly where to go with the ball pre-snap, and he delivers it super accurately. Does he have the biggest arm in the CFL? No. I think it's fair to say he's lost at least a little bit of velocity, but the best way to make up for a little bit of lack of zip on the ball is getting it out before anybody else, and he is doing that very well. He was our honorable mention for Offensive Player of the Week this week for good reason at 3 Down Nation, by the way. Week 2 was so unbelievable on the offensive side of the ball. There was about 9 people you could make a good case for. Like, we had Sam MLS catch 3 touchdown passes, and he was not the pick or the honorable mention, which is wild. But for the sake of my fantasy team, I hope Trevor Harris keeps hitting Samuel Emilus for all those touchdowns.
Nobody cares about your fantasy team.
That's not true. I care about it. That's at least one person, and it's a 3-down fantasy league. So I'm going up against Peter Klein this week, so Peter Klein cares about my fantasy team too. So that's 2 people, bare minimum. Regardless, I'm taking the Riders. And look, I think the Calgary Stampeders, should be said, they played pretty darn well game 1. They came super close to beating Winnipeg, and they lost arguably for the same reason that they lost last year's West semifinal, which was abysmal special teams play. They gave up a big return in that one. They gave up 2 singles when they arguably should not. The return game with Tyreek McAllister, who's been a really dynamite player in this league previously, didn't really do much. So if you're the Calgary Stampeders, to me, that is the number one thing we have to see from them. Yeah, the offense is working great. Dedrick Mills, hot start. VA looked really good. Defensively, they did some good things in that first game. But special teams is such a critical part of the game. This is not the NFL where it's an afterthought. This is the Canadian Football League where special teams is a true third phase of the game. They have to get better there. That could easily be the difference for this club again, whether that's positively or negatively. So the Stampeders have to be special on Saturday if they want to knock off the Riders, get to 1-1, and continue this head-to-head dominance they've been experiencing. For JC Abbott, I'm John Hodge. We'll see you next week for our picks for week number 4.